Ankr worth gauge January 2030 and January 2030. The expense of Ankr sort of is gauged to be at around a base truly worth of 0.56. In opposition to mainstream thinking, the Ankr steam worth can essentially show up at a constraint of 0.64. With the regular trading certainly worth of 0.62 in USD or so. They explicitly thought Ankr worth guess February 2030. The typical expense of Ankr could go to 0.63. Toward February's end Ankr could for the most part be trading around a biggest pretty worth of 0.66. With the base expected cost of 0.60 Ankr worth assumption. Fundamentally WAC 2030. Concerning WAC 2030 Ankr cost truly is checked to show up at the most decreased possible level of 0.63. Which is genuinely critical. The Ankr cost could sort of show up at a biggest possible level of 0.69. With the ordinary gauge cost of 0.65 incredibly Ankr worth gauge April 2030. The essentially typical expense of Ankr could really go to 0.67 toward April's end. In an unpretentious manner Ankr could by and large be trading around a generally truly outrageous kind of worth of 0.72. With the base expected cost of 0.65 Ankr worth assumption, May 2030. As for May 2030 Ankr cost really is measured to by and large show up at the most decreased possible level of 0.66, which generally is genuinely huge. The Ankr cost could by and large show up at the most genuinely outrageous possible level of 0.75, with the commonplace gauge cost of 0.69. In an unobtrusive manner Ankr worth gauge June 2030 and June 2030. The expense of not set in stone, to be at around a base worth of 0.68, which for the most part is very critical. The Ankr steam worth can show up at a restriction of 0.78, with the regular trading truly worth of 0.71 in USD, which certainly is genuinely critical. Ankr worth gauge July 2030 for July. The expense of Ankr essentially is expected to sort of show up at a run-of-the-mill month-to-month farthest in every way that really matters scopes of 0.74, while the coin will trade between a restriction of 0.81 and no less than 0.71 or so. They especially thought Ankr worth assumption, August 2030. Concerning August 2030 Ankr cost, is guessed to really show up at the most insignificant possible level of 0.73. Which certainly is very huge. The Ankr cost could show up at a biggest possible level of 0.85, with the run-of-the-mill figure cost of 0.76. In an unobtrusive manner, Ankr worth gauge September 2030. The ordinary expense of Ankr could commonly go to 0.79 toward September's end. Ankr could by and large be trading around a biggest especially worth of 0.88, with the base expected cost of 0.76. Ankr worth assumption October 2030. Concerning October 2030 Ankr cost basically is figure to sort of show up at a most negligible possible level of 0.79, certainly as opposed to prevalent thinking the Ankr cost could show up at a biggest possible level of 0.92, with the ordinary check cost of 0.81. Which sort of is very critical. Ankr worth guess November 2030 and November 2030. The expense of Ankr truly is assessed to generally be at around a base, especially worth of 0.82 or so. They thought the Ankr steam really worth can truly show up at a restriction of 0.96, with the run-of-the-mill trading commonly worth of 0.85. In USD Ankr worth guess December 2030 for December. The expense of Ankr in every practical sense is expected to really show up at an ordinary month-to-month, essentially the furthest sort of compasses of 0.86, while the coin will trade between a constraint of 100 and no less than 0.83 within the latest 1 month. The expense of Ankr decreased by 71,958, discarding a mind-blowing commonplace measure of 0.074 from its continuous exceptionally worth in a sort of enormous manner. This surprising down suggests that the coin really is in plunge at the fundamentally present time, suggesting that it might explicitly be a fair buy and important entryway for quick endeavor. The 90 days cost change is close 74.91, and the expense surrounded from a base commonplace expense of 0.11 to most outrageous sort of typical expense of 0.12 in the past 90 days. In a very huge manner, Ankr basically is someplace close 74.08, with the most lovely outrageous run-of-the-mill cost of the coin, by and large was around 0.21. And the base commonplace worth of was around 0.16 in past 4 months or so. They thought Ankr worth Figure 2030 facts. What will be Ankr worth in 2030? The Ankr not entirely settled to especially show up at a biggest level of 100, within every way that really matters most minimal expense of 0.83, close to the completion of 2030. Does Ankr in a real sense have a future in a fundamentally large manner, to the extent that worth Ankr has a remarkable pretty potential to show up at new levels in a by and large significant manner, especially at for the most part is check that Ankr will augment in regard. Which basically is very critical as truly demonstrated by unambiguous trained professionals and business specialists. Ankr can rock the boat in and out of town cost of 145 till 2030 in a truly significant manner. Is Ankr worth buying in 2030? In an unobtrusive manner, Ankr's kind of worth sort of should generally continue to stretch out as lack will in genuinely broad help cost rise generously. Note there is a bet to any endeavor in a for the most part significant manner. Just put assets into what you can really accomplish preceding arriving at any goals and especially lead the best investigation possible. Ankr worth gauge January 2031. The expense of Ankr is expected to arrive at in any event worth of 0.82 in 2031. In an unobtrusive manner, the Ankr cost could in every practical sense show up at a generally truly outrageous sort of worth of 0.93, with the common trading cost of 0.91 all through 2031. Which especially is genuinely huge. Ankr worth conjecture February 2031, the expense of Ankr in every practical sense is expected to truly reach at the in a real sense, the least really worth of 0.90 in 2031. The Ankr cost could generally show up at a generally outrageous worth of 0.98, with the normal trading cost of 0.93 all through 2031. In a significant manner Ankr worth assumption walk 2031. The expense of Ankr truly is expected to generally arrive at in any event worth of 0.92 in 2031 or so. They truly thought the Ankr cost could show up at a generally really outrageous in every practical sense worth of 101. With the commonplace trading cost of 0.96 all through 2031 or so. They thought Ankr worth assumption April 2031. The expense of Ankr explicitly is expected to sort of reach a kind of the least truly worth of 0.94 in 2031, which in every way that really matters is genuinely huge. The Ankr cost could show up at a generally kind of outrageous worth of 106, with the ordinary trading cost of 0.98 all through 2031. In a significant manner Ankr worth figure May 2031. The typical expense of Ankr could essentially go to 101 around the completion of May or so. They for the most part thought Ankr could be trading around a biggest worth of 110. With the base expected cost of 0.98 and in every way that really matters significant way. Ankr worth gauge June 2031 for June. The expense of Ankr in every practical sense is expected to in every way that really matters show up at a normal month to month. Actually the farthest most certainly reaches of 104, while the coin will trade between a restriction of 115 and its sort of the least 100, which in a real sense is genuinely critical. Ankr worth guest